The Economic Week at the Startup Business Festival is where innovation meets opportunity. It's a deep dive into the engines of our economy, exploring how emerging financial technologies, market trends, and investment opportunities are reshaping the business landscape. This week is a platform for discussions around fintech access to capital and the strategic growth that fuels economic development. Together, we'll uncover the vast potential of the evolving financial sector and what it means for aspiring entrepreneurs and established businesses alike. In a world where access to finance can be a game changer, Economic Week is here to showcase how businesses can grow, thrive, and transform communities through strategic investments and smart, sustainable growth models. Join us as we spotlight the innovations, opportunities, and financial frameworks that are setting the stage for a prosperous future. This week, we're redefining economic potential at the Startup Business Festival.
Welcome to day 4 of week 3 at the 2024 Startup Business Festival. It's an absolute privilege to have you all here with us as we continue our journey in exploring innovative strategies to build resilient startup ecosystems in the era of AI. Today, we focus on driving into innovation through AI, sustainable business practices for the future, a topic that is essential as it is expiring. At the heart of our discussion is the critical question of how we, as entrepreneurs and innovators, can harness the transformative power of AI to create solutions that not only profitable, but are also environmentally responsible and sustainable. It is my honor to introduce our keynote speaker for today, Tiang Bahumi Khotule, an accomplished technical solutions architect and PhD scholar, as well as a strategic thinker. Tiang's exceptional academic achievements and professional expertise make her a trailblazer in fields of AI, digital innovation, and sustainability. She is a Chevron scholar and a Warwick Business School alum who brings together a wealth of knowledge in leveraging AI tools to enhance business operations and sustainability. Her impressive career spans cloud architecture, cybersecurity, and program management, supported by advanced certifications from AWS. Through her PhD research, Tiang is pioneering efforts to help companies integrate AI-driven solutions to more eco-friendly and sustainable practices, an endeavor that aligns perfectly with today's theme. As we hear from Tiang today, I encourage all of you to reflect on how technology can be a force for good and in your own business and in your own industry. Her insights will undoubtedly inspire us to think in new ways and spark ideas that can drive sustainable innovation in your ventures. Let us make today an impactful and engaging session. Help me welcome our speaker for today, Diane.
Hey! Hi, Lerato. How are you?
Hi, Diane. How are you?
Oh, I'm fantastic. I'm excited for today's session, actually. I
You know,
am elated.
I've given you already a little bit of an intro, but
Mhm.
who are you to anybody who's tuning in right now and doesn't understand or doesn't have the familiarity that I have with you?
Thanks for that. My name is Tiang, obviously. I am from South Africa, but I'm currently based in the UK, and I'm here as a result of a very detailed but very interesting career path that I followed. It took a lot of pivoting to get to where I am. I am working as a technical solutions architect, but I've just completed my master's actually in management of innovation systems and digital innovation. And yeah, I'm currently pursuing my PhD. So I am studying at Aston Business School, and I am studying towards a PhD in sustainability, IT, innovation. Yeah, that's it.
See, these are things that we invite academics to come and speak to us because we have been speaking to entrepreneurs, we've been speaking to startups, we've been speaking to
Yeah.
CEOs. But you know, the academia is still a part that we haven't tapped into. So I invited you today to have like a candid interview
Mm.
where we just pick your brain and see from the academic side where we're going with AI, where we're going with sustainability and where we're going as like the business of it all. So let me just dive into it. Can you tell us more about your journey from commerce to informatics to becoming the tech solutions architect that you are today and a PhD scholar?
Absolutely. So, like I told you, my career has experienced quite a few pivots. So, Lagata and I go way back. I call you Lagata. I guess it's really Kemang, but I call you Lagata, and we go way back. In fact, we met first year in Cape Town, where I was doing my undergrad in stats. And at the time, I assumed it's something that I wanted to do, but I wasn't fulfilled. And that's when I took the leap of faith and I pursued a degree in IT at University of Pretoria. And then I did an honors in the same field. However, I did an internship at AWS. And it was at my time in AWS that I realized that it's not enough to be a person in IT. You know, you can't just speak the language of IT when you work for a multinational conglomerate. It's actually to your benefit if you understand the language of business. Because at the end of the day, the people who sign the checks are who? People in finance, you know, people who will endorse what it is that you're trying to have them buy into as a person in tech. And I didn't fully realize just how limited my vocabulary was in business until my time at AWS, which is what encouraged me to eventually pursue my degree at Warwick Business School, because I feel like this particular degree that I'm doing is the perfect marriage between IT and business, you know. So I don't think in this day and age you can't afford to look at those fields in isolation. You know, they actually work together and heavily so. So it's to your benefit to actually study the sweet spot where they converge. And through luckily, well, I don't know if it was luck, if it was opportunity, or I was at the right place at the right time, but I managed to secure myself a scholarship, the Chevening Scholarship, and it's aimed towards third world countries, essentially brilliant minds within third world countries from the UK government. They identify people who are dynamic, leaders in their areas of expertise, and people who want to make a change in their countries, their respective countries, but also realize the value of network. And um, it was through that scholarship that I actually studied my master's at Warwick Business School. But now, what I didn't anticipate, because you know, when you study abroad, you assume you'll go back and then implement what it is that you've learned in that particular country back home. But I didn't anticipate that I would identify so much more within that program that I actually want to explore. So that's why I decided then to pursue my PhD. I was like, I was introduced to concepts that I don't think I would have been afforded had I just stayed at AWS or just relied on my undergrad degree. I mean, there are topics like strategy. I had no idea what strategy was. I mean, the concept of strategy in layman terms makes sense, but in the context of business and what it means in IT, AI-driven worlds, you know, it's a very different dynamic. Then you pour into that sustainability and how to. I learned a concept called eco-innovation, you know, green technology. Those are things that I was like, hang on, I was not familiar with terms like this, and now I'm excited to now explore that. So that's when I decided, let me just do my PhD, because I'm very interested in that. You see, if you think of a Venn diagram, let's say there are three circles: business, innovation, and then tech, you know, or sustainability instead of innovation, sorry. Those three circles, where they converge, that sweet spot that they converge, is what I wanted my PhD on, you know, business, IT, sustainability, and what that could mean for us in the next couple of years. So I've started off with that. And as I say, my career path in terms of my education has been a result of a lot of awakenings, but also flexibility and my ability to pivot. I mean, if I see the world is going a certain way, and also I follow through with my interests. You know, it's one thing to pursue something, but it's another if you're genuinely interested in it, because the passion and the dedication that you will apply to it is different. So yeah, that's essentially how I got to where I am. I mean, one thing that has remained consistent was my love for technology, was my love for all things AI, machine learning, things like that. But along the lines, then I realized what that translates to in different fields and not just what I thought I knew back then. And I'm so glad that I took that leap of faith, because here I am.
Here you are. You are with us right now.
Yeah.
You're
Mhm,
sharing your insights and you are kind of having this
mhm.
conversation with us. So I'm gonna keep on asking you questions because I can see the joy that it brings to
Yes.
speak about
Mhm.
things that are all AI, all transformation,
Yes.
all innovation. So let's jump through what AI means for business. How do you see AI transforming business operations within the next decade, or half a decade, or to a decade or so?
I honestly feel like people see AI as a replacement for what it is that we do as individuals. And to be honest, it's not. I'd like to think of AI as an assistant, who just does things faster, and retains information much better than any other individual would, but it's not a replacement at all. I think what AI is going to do for businesses is essentially expedite processes and how we do things at a fraction of a time and at a fraction of a budget. And that means essentially increasing business operations, multiplying profits, but also not compromising on what it is that the business does. It just facilitates it at a bigger scale and at a faster rate. That's literally it.
So it's just going to help and become a tool, is what most people
Mm.
have been saying, and I can see that
Yeah, an aid.
in like research, and especially when it comes to academia. We always tell
Mm.
people that AI is not here to.
Larata, you just broke off there a moment. Larata, can you hear me? Before you go any further, I can't hear you because you're breaking up.
The Economic Week at the Startup Business Festival is where innovation meets opportunity. It's a deep dive into the engines of our economy, exploring how emerging financial technologies, market trends, and investment opportunities are reshaping the business landscape. This week is a platform for discussions around fintech access to capital and the strategic growth that fuels economic development. Together, we'll uncover the vast potential of the evolving financial sector and what it means for aspiring entrepreneurs and established businesses alike. In a world where access to finance can be a game changer, Economic Week is here to showcase how businesses can grow, thrive, and transform communities through strategic investments and smart, sustainable growth models. Join us as we spotlight the innovations, opportunities, and financial frameworks that are setting the stage for a prosperous future. This week, we're redefining economic potential at the Startup Business Festival.
Oh yes, we're back. We're back. Had to switch audio quickly.
Oh,
Yeah, we'll start the conversation on AI and how
mhm.
businesses can better integrate it. So I'm going to like pick your brain and say, what are some practical examples or some practical AI tools that businesses today can start to adopt to help them maybe monitor, operate, or optimize operations?
Yeah, exactly what you said. So, right now, I think companies are, I don't know if you've heard of the phrase a digital twin. So, it's essentially think of you trying to devise a blueprint of your company, or you're trying to make a huge decision within your organization. And instead of executing it and then learning after that it doesn't work, you essentially build a digital twin of your business. So, you duplicate what you do in your business operations just digitally, and then you execute the decision within that template or that prototype. So we're seeing a lot more companies tap into that just for like predictive technology. Is the decision worth the investment? Is it something we want to explore? Things like that. And I think that's a great investment. I mean, it's sort of like an informed decision that you're making, or a calculated risk, because you've seen it play out in the digital realm, and now you can replicate that given the insights that you got from that project into your business. So we see a lot of predictive technology. We see automation. So if there's any streamlining problems within your organization, it's automated. You don't have to have anyone resolve the dispute on your behalf. AI just does it in the background without you realizing. So it's just small things like that. Like, I think AI, for the most part, would be beneficial to organizations if they implement it in their processes and how they conduct business, because at the end of the day, you want things to be smooth sailing. And I think the best way to facilitate that without, having any downtime is through AI. But it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be. Another thing that I want to add, AI doesn't have to be elaborate. It doesn't have to be a robot that literally does your laundry. It doesn't have to be elaborate. It could be something as simple as um, a chat function. So you know how in IT you have to take out tickets to speak to IT. We're trying to streamline things by maybe have the first line of defense be AI, a chatbot that will resolve things without you having to wait to speak to a consultant on the other end of the line. So it's things like that that aren't really rocket science, but in the grander scheme of things, they just save time and money. So yeah.
So saving time and saving money, but we
Mm,
also need to speak about saving the planet and
mm.
how they're used, especially by businesses. So I'm going to ask you the question. What role do you see AI playing, especially when it comes to things like sustainability, especially for businesses?
So currently, my research is essentially on, I'm building a tool. I can disclose this now because it's already in the works. Think of a dashboard. When you drive a car and you have all these signals, like your petrol is done, or this is going on in your engine, and then you have a dashboard and a speedometer. Now, imagine if you had that on your computer, but then it tells you your activity for the month and where you could have not only saved money but made money. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
think how to then use, I like to say, how can you drive a sustainably driven business as opposed to a strategy driven business. So I want companies to now look into the concept of how can we monitor our progress, our operations, where are we leaking, like where is the oil leaking from this engine, how can we repair that, and then how then can we reuse the oil to minimize costs. So that's where AI comes in, like a digital dashboard, like a Fitbit for your business. Tells you how fast you've run, how much you've made, how much you've lost. It's really simple. Does that make sense? So I really
Yeah.
think a lot of businesses could benefit from that. If you're to conduct an analysis of business operations through AI, just running in the background, you don't even have to, plug it in, or you don't have to monitor it all the time. It does the monitoring for you, and then at the end of the month, it will tell you, oh, this is what's going on. This is where we feel like you could benefit. This is where you feel like you can cut costs. You spend this amount of money and energy towards this. This is where you can save leverage, etc., etc. So that's kind of what I'm interested in, and I feel like it's something that a lot of businesses could benefit from, regardless of industry, I feel.
And yeah, they need to like try and make sure that they're using their time more wisely. They are monitoring
Exactly.
this. So I can see where it's coming in and where it's going. But we also need to look at the eco-friendly side and also how
Mm,
this can. So we're not just monitoring how well we're doing, but how well we are doing for our planet. So can you
mm.
share maybe a case study or an example of a business successfully integrating AI for eco-friendly practices mostly?
Do you want, okay, let me tell you the concept of just adopting AI and cloud computing in itself is a sustainability effort. So it doesn't have to be aimed at being sustainable, just the act itself. So I was involved in something called the PTP at AWS, and it's essentially companies trying to leverage cloud technology. So they don't know what cloud technology is. For those who don't know, I'd like to say cloud technology is like a USB in the sky. Basically, it's essentially a USB in the sky. Your stuff exists in the cloud. I don't know how else to phrase it in layman terms, but it's essentially just a USB in the sky or a CD in the sky where you store all your company data, all your records, streamline processes, and it's essentially avoiding using. Do you know what a CPU is? Those huge boxes. Now imagine a CPU for personal use it's quite sizable. Now imagine in the context of something like an ABSA or an MTN, where they work with customer data, they have security platforms and considerations. They're going to use copious amounts of CPUs, and with that, it means what? What happens when you touch your CPU on the side after 8 hours of usage nonstop? It's hot.
Yes.
It's hot. Now, cooling it off, a lot of companies use cooling technology to actually literally they spray water onto it, for lack of a better term, to cool it off. And that does a number on the environment. The emission of the heat does a number on the environment. And so that's why we're trying to encourage a lot of companies to migrate to the cloud, because first of all, you're saving your energy and water consumption by 40%. Who doesn't want that? Secondly, you don't pay for rent. The data centers that the land that the data centers occupy, you need to pay rent on. And we're trying to minimize that, so that your financial resources can be allocated elsewhere. So I just feel like the act of migrating to the cloud or using AI is more sustainable than okay, let me give you a very practical example. In the event of an earthquake, what's going to happen to your data centers? So now you've compromised the data, the centers no longer exist. It's now your operations cease to exist because now you have to work towards rebuilding the data centers. How long is that going to take? What does that mean for your clients? So things like that are things to consider when moving legacy to or on-prem to the cloud. And I strongly encourage that, because you cut your costs, not only cut your costs, obviously from a financial perspective, it's a very worthy investment, but environmentally speaking, it's the right thing to do.
And moving towards eco-friendly, more
Mm.
sustainable practices is the right thing to do. Trying to move
Yeah.
away from having big, bulky data centers that
Mm.
are on like plots of land that could be used from
Exactly.
wherever they could be.
Mm.
I'm going to move to a question that we have on Instagram.
Mhm.
So somebody asked, it sounds like AI and IoT. How will the employee then see how it will benefit their day to day, and how it also translates to customers and communities?
How will employees regard AI and IoT?
Yes, how will they see it in their day to day as employees? So we're moving away from the business owner and the people who are running the business. How will employees see the use of AI and IoT in their day to
Mhm.
day? And how will it also translate to customers and communities?
Mhm. I think like I said before, I think we have to do away with seeing AI as a threat to our jobs. In fact, I think the opposite. With the emergence of AI, there will be a lot more jobs that come to fruition because of AI. Um, One thing I will say that I am not concerned about, but I think we should heed the warning of a lot of entrepreneurs who have talked about this, is make your staff or your team equipped to engage with AI. Because it's one thing to have AI. I mean, AI stands for artificial intelligence. It's intelligent and it exists, but you need to then show it what to do. You need to ask the correct prompts. I mean, it's no use to have a chat GPT, but you don't know how to maneuver your way around it or leverage it to your own benefit. So I want people to identify and look at AI as an assistant. It's there to make things work to your benefit. So I think it could spell success for employees if you look at AI as like an assistant or a colleague. And for communities, especially in the public sector, faster service delivery, something as trivial, well, not trivial because there's nothing minute about it, but the concept of voting, you know, I don't know if you saw the recent elections where a lot of the mailboxes in the US were bombed. And I feel like all of this could have been avoided had people employed the leverage of AI, what it stands for and what it could afford you as a community. So not just in the government sphere, but when you say community, I just immediately think of public sector and what that could mean for schools, what that could mean for online learning, coding in schools, assistant with homework, the concept of having afternoon classes and having to go to a teacher. You can do that online, through a virtual bot. So there's a lot of things that could be facilitated through the usage of AI. But I think between now where we are and what the future looks like with AI, we need to bridge that gap by familiarizing people with the concept of AI. And that starts by destigmatizing what AI is. It's nothing, it's the concept, the fact that Google, for instance, knows your search history, that's AI, and it can make predictions for your future searches based on what you've historically searched. That's AI, and it's nothing scary. There's nothing scary about it. You'll look back and think of how many times you've engaged with AI and you haven't even realized, but it streamlined things and facilitated convenience for you as a user in your personal capacity. So what more, a community, you know?
Yeah, so we're streamlining all of these things that would have taken time because let's face
Yeah.
it, quicker, it's more instantaneous. When you once you respond, you get it almost immediately. And because this AI gets better and better over time. So let's look at one of the other, yeah, let's look at one of the other areas of expertise, cybersec. So cybersecurity is very complex and it's very necessary because when we are dealing with people's data, let's say for a business owner that's listening to us right now and they're thinking, they're sparking that interest, they need to also generate a little bit of understanding on what it means to keep that data once you have it, once you have these processes in it, to keep it safe and to keep it secure. So, how can businesses ensure that cybersecurity is a priority while also looking at AI adoption and AI-driven systems?
I think in this day and age, especially for cloud native companies or organizations that are now migrating to the cloud, security should be integral from the start. I mean, you can't, but right now, data is a commodity, I don't know how many companies literally have their offering based on just client data, and that's an asset in itself. So security should be integral from the start, but I think AI could be used in cybersecurity in terms of threat detection, anticipating the threat. And if you think of a net has holes, AI should be able to close the gap without being told to do so. It must just automatically do it. So, strong encryption. Um, there's a lot of processes that I feel like AI can do faster, like I said. So they could benefit from that. Yes, they could.
All right, so let's more shift the focus to now startups. So
Mm.
businesses that are just starting out, like they are in this world, they're trying to carve out their own lane. They're trying to make sure that they are equipped for the new and the fourth industrial revolution.
Mm.
So, what advice would you give to startups specifically who are building their tech infrastructure to be both secure and sustainable?
I would honestly say startups must consider cloud computing because that's the future right now. Um, Not just at AWS, because obviously I don't want to say I'm biased, but I worked for AWS. So I would say AWS, your Googles, your Microsofts, cloud computing is the future right now. And it's especially considering the South African economy, where we're prone to load shedding, where we don't have time to have any downtime or have systems down. We have to leverage the power of cloud computing. So I think startups should prioritize that, especially with organizations that have robust sustainability credentials, because right now, most governments are emphasizing and imploring companies to be more carbon neutral, in the UK, for instance. And that's why I feel like this was the perfect study that I'm trying to understand. In the UK, the government is literally taxing companies exorbitant amounts of money if you exceed a certain threshold in terms of your carbon emissions. And I love that. Like, I love that the government stands on business in terms of like, hey, we have 30 minutes. Like, the world or the environment has been compromised in your name. So either you're going to do this or we fine you. And obviously, no company wants to use or lose excessive amounts of money. So they will try by all means to abide by that. So right now, I really like the concept of having identified service providers, cloud service providers that are within the criteria that governments emphasize in terms of what it means to be sustainable. So think of it this way: if AWS is cloud neutral or carbon neutral in this particular industry and is recognized by the government, you engaging in business with AWS automatically makes you sustainable. Does that make sense? And obviously that's something to boast about as a startup. It's something commendable to be saying you are green, you're environmentally friendly, and you leverage eco innovation. And then I would also encourage, depending on what industry you're in, I I I think cybersecurity is something that cannot be taken with a pinch of salt. It's something that's huge, especially when you think about where the majority of our business occurs, which is online. So yeah, like invest in cybersecurity measures, employee training, be scalable, secure APIs, things like that.
So it's always nice to be saying that we are scaling towards the future, we are moving towards the future. But there are
Mhm.
also things that we need to consider, obviously. So
Mm.
I'm going to ask you on just a couple of questions on the nature of AI and ethical considerations that come with it. So, how can businesses address the ethical concerns related to using AI for decision-making processes?
Okay, this is a conversation that's so I'll tell you why. So I one of our modules that we had to do for the master's project was a manifesto, and it's essentially talking about two topics within your whole course that resonated the most with you. I wrote mine, and one of the topics I was discussing was AI versus Ubuntu. As someone in tech, you would expect that I would embrace, I mean, I do embrace what AI stands for, what it could afford us as a community, both, communities and business alike, and government. But I'm also wary as a South African who really, really tries to live by the Ubuntu philosophy, which is I am because you are. So it essentially fosters humanity and community. And I I understand people's hesitation when it comes to AI, that they regard AI as a replacement for our communities and the very fabric of our humanity, and it's not. So I think the only way to destigmatize what AI could mean to people and businesses, because believe it or not, there are a lot of businesses who are very resistant to AI, to cloud technology. It's in the same breath as people who don't want to open bank accounts because they don't see the money. They want to be able to feel the money in their hands. They want it to be tangible. And that's how people feel about data. Like, if I can't see the data center or the CPU, it doesn't exist if it's in the cloud. So it's a conversation that can only be had when businesses ensure transparency in terms of how AI models are trained and used. Because at the end of the day, artificial intelligence implies that this particular technology needs enough data to make decisions for you. So it can't just, you can't log into Google and then expect your first suggestion, Google is going to get it right without having sufficient data on you. So I think the only way for an intelligent being or a technology to actually know how to make the decisions, when to make them, and what other considerations to make is if it has sufficient training data. And unfortunately, it has to be real data, not just contrived data. And businesses then have to be transparent to clients, like, oh, we're going to use your data to train this model to do this. Do you consent? And I think that transparency can help a lot, in terms of destigmatizing, but also putting people's concerns at bay, like regular audits, and then building ethical AI frameworks as well, just to calm everyone's nerves. But then another thing is, unfortunately, which is a topic of conversation, AI learns traits or adopts the characters of the people who built it. And that's why I maintain that it's very, very important that the people that are involved in building an AI tool or an AI offering are diverse. Because, God forbid, this AI tool or a robot, for instance, is built and manufactured by someone who feels a particular way, maybe feels a certain way, towards women or towards children. And this AI will adopt its biases, its ethics, and it will adopt that characteristic into its decision making. So it's very important that even in the AI building, we have to ensure that it reflects a very diverse and an unbiased decision making model.
So yeah, I was about to ask you the bias question. So
Mm,
for you to like more elaborate, what do you mean when you say, what do we mean when we say inclusive and unbiased? So when these AI solutions are being built, what do we mean when we say inclusive and unbiased?
When I say inclusive and diversity, when I say inclusivity and diversity, I mean be intentional about involving people, not because it's the right thing to do or you're trying to tick all the boxes, but it's also a matter of whose voice is not reflected in the output of this product. What we want to see is, we don't I don't know if you saw the Twitter trend where people were prompting ChatGPT to create certain pictures, and they were very racially motivated. I mean, the prompt was very racially motivated, like, oh, build me a picture of a white person who is a thug versus a black person who is a thug. And AI would generate the black person picture, but it wouldn't do the same for a white counterpart. You understand? Things like that, where you feel like, hang on, it should be able to do it both ways or no way at all. So things like that, like, it would be beneficial if the pool of information from which this AI takes its data is very diverse and not one-sided. It shouldn't be biased towards women or against a certain demographic. It should reflect everyone, because at the end of the day, it's to the benefit of everyone and not for the consumption of just one small party.
So, as someone who is deeply involved in both academia um, and obviously because you have technical knowledge, how do you
Mm,
balance the theory part of what we're discussing and the practical
mm.
application?
Do you know what? I've realized, and I'm so grateful that between my master's and my undergrad, I took time to work, because you never truly know how much you don't know until you get out there and try to implement what it is that you know. Then you realize, your contributions are not minor, but they they're naive in the context of business. So you need to hone your skill, you need to understand real life challenges. I mean, it's one thing to have a degree, but it's another to then implement it in a real life game. So I have realized that that's actually why I'm doing my PhD, because I've registered a company. I've identified a sweet spot that I want to tackle within the UK and Africa at large. And I feel like this PhD will serve as, think of it as market research for what it is that I'm trying to do. It's not enough to have, I mean, you have academic knowledge and that's brilliant, but what does it mean in the context of the world? Is it changing the world? What is it bettering? What is it doing? Are you having this as an accolade, or you have a plan with this PhD? Um, I was telling my mentor the other time that, okay, I can easily go into business right now and it would be a success, but how much better would it be if I say I've studied this industry in the capacity of a PhD for 3 years, and I understand what it is that's going on? That mixed with my corporate experience helps a lot. So I don't think academia and corporate and real life experiences should be looked at in isolation. Whatever you learn should be applicable, in the real world.
Mhm. So it should be applicable and attainable in the real world.
Yeah.
Um, as we're winding down, like we've got a few more minutes left, but
Mm.
in are the emerging trends that people should look out for, especially in AI and entrepreneurs should watch out
Oh, wow. I think AI powered, economy solutions right now, things like voting. I see a lot more companies adopting the concept of automation. Hopefully that will be the case because in government, because I feel like of all the industries, public sector is the most reluctant. And it is understandably so. This is a new technology, this is a new concept. It's not that new, but it's only now that it's gaining traction. So when you think about the quantity of the data that they are holding on to, it makes sense that they're very hesitant. But I think what we will see going forward is a lot more adoption of automation, circular economy solutions, but also smart cities. So the manner in which cities are designed is also going to be very AI driven, but also very sustainably centered. So I also think we'll see a change in regulatory standards. So, I mean, our current regulations are centered around business ops as we know it, but going forward, we now have to integrate what that means in the context of AI and what that could mean for the law, regulations. We're also seeing that right now, especially with COP22 conversations like that. We'll see a lot more amendments made to regulations, and also, yeah, governing bodies. How even content in university is starting to change. So I'm looking forward to that change, and I think it's it's one thing to have technology, but it's another to have people who understand the processes to engage this technology. So you have to equip the people. And I see it now even in schools where children are taught how to do coding, and that's so exciting because it breaks that stigma at a young age. By the time they're our age, AI is a friend. It's not a foreign entity. So I think that's where we're gonna see this change faster than we anticipate, actually.
All right, let me move on to one of my final questions. What
Mhm.
advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs, so people who don't have businesses yet but are watching the session, absorbing the information that you're giving them, and kind of taking pieces of wisdom with them? So, what advice would you give to an aspiring entrepreneur and a business leader who would want to integrate AI and sustainability into their ventures?
I Firstly, I'm very honored that you think I'm able to part wisdom in that regard because I myself am just starting. I always assumed that entrepreneurship is something that you have to start at 16, you drop out of school, you hit the ground running, and that's that. And I feel like I'm the opposite. I took the calculated route where I wanted to get my degree and I wanted to do this. And then only do I feel like I'd be confident enough to venture into business and I'd have something to offer. So I don't want people to feel intimidated by other entrepreneurs who are, growing up, I was always like, wow, people who are on the Forbes 30 under 30 list are doing amazing. How early did they start? 16. Wow, millionaire 21. And just because it doesn't look like that for you doesn't mean it's not worth the investment. Bet on yourself. And that's exactly what I've done thus far. And don't think what you have to offer is minuscule. It's worth the investment, so take it. And then lastly, I really hope if there's one thing that people are going to take away from this conversation, it is this: AI is your friend, but also AI is hey, it's inevitable. If you're going to, if it, you can only resist it for so long, but it won't be long before it's something that most companies use. In fact, it's not just a company thing. It's found its way in our personal lives. It will soon find its way in how we live life, communicate with each other, foster social environments, things like that. So embrace it, use it to your benefit, especially as you start up. Use it to your benefit. I mean, before I'm a software professional. I'm a software developer by profession, but right now Google has introduced a tool where you don't even have to know how to code. Do you understand what I'm saying? You can build an app by typing and explaining what you want this app to do. How insane is that? But now I'm not saying certain degrees are obsolete, but I'm just saying don't think you can't develop an app or build a website because you don't have the skill. Things like this type of tool on Google, for instance, exist for entrepreneurs like you. An entrepreneur doesn't have to have it together by now, but you have to have the vision and you have to have the desire to see it through. So that's what I would say to entrepreneurs. You don't have to be from a tech background to leverage what AI can offer you and your business. Use it, it's to your benefit.
Thank you so much for your time, Diane. And I want to also thank all the people who have been engaging with us. We've been seeing the comments, we've been seeing the questions. And I want to encourage people to keep the conversation going. We're available on all our social media platforms, Startup Business Festival, on Facebook, on X, on Instagram, on also on YouTube. But I just want to thank my speaker for today, who had a candid conversation with me and was able to drop some nuggets, even though she seems unsure of herself, but she was speaking everything, and she was speaking from a place of academia, so from the theoretical side of things, from the basis of academia. So that's what I wanted to introduce you guys to through this segment, and I'm so thankful for my guest. Any last words before I let you go?
This has been so formidable. Honestly, this is so exciting because on a personal note, like I've known you for years. So it's so exciting to see us both in these spaces, having these conversations. So well done to you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, thank you. That was our speaker for today, Tiang Kotule, all the way from the UK, joining us live. Please keep the conversations going on all our social media platforms. Our hashtags are SBF 2024, and the second hashtag is LaunchFest 2024. That is all from me today. I'm about to end the session. Please join us tomorrow or next week as well, as we go into the final days of the 2024 Business Festival. But don't worry, we still got a lot more for you to enjoy, to engage with. There's plenty more conversations that we're going to have. But for today, this is where I'm parking the bus. Thank you so much for joining me, and have a great rest of your day.
The Economic Week at the Startup Business Festival is where innovation meets opportunity. It's a deep dive into the engines of our economy, exploring how emerging financial technologies, market trends, and investment opportunities are reshaping the business landscape. This week is a platform for discussions around fintech access to capital and the strategic growth that fuels economic development. Together, we'll uncover the vast potential of the evolving financial sector and what it means for aspiring entrepreneurs and established businesses alike. In a world where access to finance can be a game changer, Economic Week is here to showcase how businesses can grow, thrive, and transform communities through strategic investments and smart, sustainable growth models. Join us as we spotlight the innovations, opportunities, and financial frameworks that are setting the stage for a prosperous future. This week, we're redefining economic potential at the Startup Business Festival.